So, the perceptual processes that we've discussed so far cause us to see this two-dimensional array as a person standing in front of a house. More generally, our perceptual abilities let us segment the world into objects and space, into things like people and trees and houses, and let them understand where they stand in relationship to each other, where they stand in depth, giving rise to a three-dimensional understanding out from a two-dimensional world. Now, this is just part of the story. And the whole story, which we're going to discuss through the end of this lecture and the next lecture, is how it gets all the way from the world all the way into long-term memory. This is a complicated diagram, and you don't have to think about it too long. But what's worth knowing is that there are three stages. There's sensory memory, which is basically what you see, what appears to your senses. Then there's working memory, also known as short-term memory, also associated with consciousness. And that's what you experience for a brief period of time. And then there's long-term memory, what you carry away with you. If you know your name, if you know the city you were born in, if you know my name, it's all long-term memory. It's stuff stored in. And what I want to focus on for this lecture is how things get from sensory memory into working memory. And the answer is attention. When you attend to things, when you focus the spotlight of attention onto things, it causes you to remember them and think about them. Now, it turns out that there are some surprising facts about attention. Attention gets information from sensory memory to working memory to consciousness, but there's a lot of things we don't attend to. A lot of what goes on in the world we're unaware of. Sometimes attention is effortless. Sometimes things just jump out at us and capture our attention automatically. So I'll give a demonstration. I'm going to show you a slide, and I want you to tell me when a green X shows up. If you're sitting by yourself, just shout, "Got it." We're looking for something green. Go. Now, if you're like most people, this was pretty instantaneous. Now, next one. When an O comes up, just shout, "Got it." Same deal. Boom. You saw it right away. Psychologists say this is a parallel process because you didn't have to go through each item, bum, 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 until you find it. It just popped out at you. But sometimes attention requires work and effort. So I want you to tell me when you see a red O. Go. Now, I bet it took longer. Some of you, by good fortune, our incredible mental speed, noticed it right away. Others are probably still struggling to find it. But the idea here is that to find a red O requires serial processing. And what this means is you have to effortfully go item by item until you find it. Distractions like "Where's Waldo?", which involve looking at sheets of paper where something is hidden, require this sort of search technique. For that red O to get into your mind, you have to take the time to search for it. Now, sometimes attention is involuntary. You can't help but attend. And the most obvious example is spoken language. So, if I'm sitting next to you and I'm talking, you can't help but listen to what I'm saying. I could be telling you the most boring story in the world. I could be telling it over my phone, not to you at all. But if there's no other distractions, you can't help but listen. You can't shut your ears. I mean, you could literally stick your fingers in your ears. But barring that, my talking will attract your attention and capture it. Here's another case, and this is a classic discovery in psychology known as the Stroop effect. And it's very simple. We show you a list of colors, and your task is to name the colors. So you might see this, and you say, you have to name as fast as possible: red, green, blue, black, green, blue, and so on. Easy as pie. Now let's make the colors words. Remember, you're not supposed to read the words. Just name the colors. Well, it's also easy. green, red, blue, black, blue, red. But now, and here's where the cool Stroop effect comes in. Imagine the words say different things than the colors. So imagine you have to do this as quickly as possible. Blue, green, red, green, black. Slower. It is definitely slower. Why? Because if you know how to read English, you can't help but read English. So you know you're supposed to look at the color of the letters for the first one, which is blue, but you can't help but also read the word red, and red jumps out at you. And this just shows how sometimes things out of your control can capture your attention and derail a mental process. I will just tell you, by the way, that you can use the Stroop effect to detect Russian spies. So there's a TV show, The Americans, a lovely TV show involving these sympathetic Russian spies, and they know Russian. Now, suppose somebody came up to you and said, I don't speak any Russian, I don't read any Russian. Is there any way you could find out whether they did? Well, there is. There's a Stroop effect. So I could give this to you and say, name the colors, and if you're not a Russian speaker, you would say, yellow, blue. But if you were a Russian speaker, it would slow you down. Because it so happens, according to Google Translate, the first word is the Russian word for blue, and the second word is the Russian word for yellow. And if you read Russian, that'll trip you up. Attention also applies in the real world. Now I'll just show you some clips of some everyday demos. And this was developed by some lovely experiments done in Cornell about a decade ago, showing that in everyday life, when you're not paying attention to things, you don't notice things.
Excuse me. Do you know how to get to Trinity Church from here?
Yeah. You see that church down there?
Yep, straight through there.
And then you keep going down.
Sorry.
Which way? You see where that church is down there?
Yeah.
You stay on that, which is, I believe, Broadway. And then you walk down 2 or 3 blocks, and Trinity Church is on the right-hand side. We're walking in that direction.
Excuse me, you don't know where Trinity Church is, do you?
Might be Wall Street and Broadway.
Okay. Well, we're down here somewhere, aren't we?
Yeah, you see Trinity Church.
Oops, sorry.
Sorry. Yeah. Inside the Trinity Church. Right there. Yeah. If you keep going that way, you'll hit Broadway, then you go down a couple of blocks. And,
Thanks very much.
That seemed almost too easy, so later on I see how far I can take it.
Excuse me. Do you know where Trinity Church is? Ah, great.
What we do is,
Where are we on here? We sort of there.
we're right here.
Right through, thank you.
Go on. We are the Brooklyn Bridge. You want to cross over there, go down Broadway, and you'll be right there. Okay, thank you.
So the big themes here for perception involving the difficulty of perception, and that successful perception involves educated guesses about the world. And the theme about attention is we attend to some things and not others, and we miss a surprising amount of what happens in the world. And in the next lecture, we're going to turn to the final third of this trilogy and talk about memory.